Have you ever noticed how easy it is to hear everyone else, but how difficult it can be to hear yourself? Not your voice when you speak, but your inner voice, the quiet one, the one that whispers instead of shouts, the one that often gets buried under noise, opinions, expectations, and distractions. We spend so much of our lives listening outward, listening to advice, listening to expectations, listening to what others think we should do, how we should act, who we should become. And slowly, without realizing it, we become very good at hearing the world, but not always very good. At hearing ourselves, listening to yourself, is not something most of us are taught. We're taught to follow instructions, to meet expectations, to stay busy, to keep moving, but rarely are we taught to pause, to ask ourselves simple questions. How do I really feel? What do I truly need? What feels right to me? Instead, we move from one moment to the next, guided by urgency rather than awareness. And over time, the distance between us and our inner voice can grow wider. Not because the voice disappears, but because the noise becomes louder. Think about how often you ignore your own signals, the moment you feel tired, but keep going anyway. The moment something feels wrong, but you convince yourself it's nothing. The moment you feel overwhelmed, but push those feelings aside, because there's still more to do. Listening to yourself often begins with noticing, not fixing, not judging, not reacting immediately, just noticing. Noticing when your body feels tense, noticing when your thoughts feel heavy, noticing when your energy feels low. Your body speaks, even when your mind is busy. Fatigue is a message. Stress is a signal. Restlessness is information. But when life moves quickly, it's easy to ignore those messages, to silence them with distractions, with noise, with responsibilities, with endless movement. And the more we ignore those signals, the harder it becomes to recognize them. Listening to yourself is not always comfortable. Sometimes what you hear is something you've been avoiding, a truth you didn't want to face, a feeling you didn't want to feel, a realization that something needs to change. But discomfort is not always a warning. Sometimes it's an invitation to pay attention, an invitation to reconnect, an invitation to understand yourself more deeply. There is a difference between reacting and listening. Reacting is immediate, quick, automatic. Listening is slower. It requires patience. It requires stillness. It requires the willingness to sit with uncertainty without rushing toward an answer. Have you ever made a decision that didn't feel right, but you ignored that feeling? Maybe it looked good on the outside, logical, practical, acceptable to others, but inside, something felt off, a quiet hesitation, a subtle tension, and maybe later, you realized that the feeling was trying to guide you, not loudly, not dramatically, but gently. Listening to yourself means trusting that gentle voice, not blindly, but thoughtfully, not impulsively, but intentionally. It means learning to distinguish between noise and intuition, between fear
and guidance,
between habit and truth. Sometimes listening to yourself means giving yourself permission to pause, not because you're weak, but because you're aware. In a world that rewards constant motion, pausing can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, but pause creates clarity. Pause creates space. Pause allows your thoughts to settle like snow falling in a shaken globe. Your mind becomes clearer when movement slows. Without pause, it's easy to mistake urgency for importance, to believe that everything needs immediate attention, but not everything is urgent, and not everything deserves your energy. Listening to yourself also means learning to recognize your limits, not as failures, but as boundaries. There is strength in knowing when to rest. There is wisdom in knowing when to say no. There is courage in choosing what protects your peace. So often, we push ourselves beyond what feels healthy, not because we want to, but because we believe we should be stronger, should be faster, should be more productive. But listening to yourself means asking a different question. Not what should I do, but what do I need? Sometimes what you need is rest. Sometimes what you need is distance. Sometimes what you need is quiet. Listening to yourself also means honoring your emotions, not hiding them, not dismissing them, not pretending they don't exist. Emotions are not interruptions. They are signals, messages from within. Sadness may be telling you that something matters deeply. Frustration may be telling you that something needs attention. Joy may be telling you that something aligns with who you truly are. But when emotions are ignored, they don't disappear. They gather, they build, they wait until they can no longer be ignored. Listening to yourself means giving emotions room to exist without judgment, not labeling them as good or bad, but simply acknowledging them, understanding them, learning from them. Listening to yourself is also an act of trust. Trust that your experiences matter. Trust that your feelings are valid. Trust that your inner voice is worth hearing, not louder than others, but equal to them. You don't have to reject advice to listen to yourself. You don't have to ignore others to trust your own voice. Listening to yourself is not isolation. It is alignment. It is bringing your actions closer to your truth, closer to your needs, closer to your values. And when you begin to listen to yourself, something shifts. Decisions feel clearer. Choices feel steadier. Life feels less reactive and more intentional. Not because everything becomes easy, but because you become aware. Aware of what matters. Aware of what drains you. Aware of what strengthens you. There is also patience in listening to yourself, because not every answer arrives immediately. Some answers take time. Time to observe. Time to reflect. Time to understand. Just like learning a new language, listening to yourself requires practice. At first, it may feel unfamiliar. You may question your instincts. You may doubt your feelings. But over time, as you continue to listen, your understanding deepens. Your awareness sharpens. Your confidence grows quietly. And eventually, your inner voice feels less distant, less uncertain, more familiar, like a trusted companion you can return to. Listening to yourself does not mean you will never make mistakes. It does not guarantee perfect decisions, but it does create clarity, and clarity reduces confusion. It allows you to move forward with intention instead of hesitation. So maybe today you don't need more advice. Maybe you don't need more noise. Maybe what you need is a moment of quiet, a moment to check in with yourself, to ask simple questions. How am I feeling right now? What feels heavy? What feels light? What feels true? Not rushing the answers, not forcing clarity, just listening. Because deep within you, there is a voice that knows more than you think. Not perfect, not loud, but honest. And the more you listen, the stronger that voice becomes. Not overwhelming, but guiding. Not demanding, but steady. So take a moment today, even a small one, to listen. Not to the world, not to expectations, not to distractions, but to yourself. Because listening to yourself is not selfish. It is not weakness. It is awareness. It is care. It is respect for your own inner world. And over time, this simple act of listening can change the way you move through life. More calmly, more intentionally, more connected to who you truly are. And perhaps in that quiet connection, you will discover that the answers you seek have been there all along, waiting patiently for you to listen.